So here we are, a couple of days before Good Friday. Traditionally in church calendars, today is known as Spy Wednesday. Nope, don't think Mission Impossible or some kind of devious political intrigue. It's a reference to Judas Iscariot. Of course, in the days that preceded that Wednesday of that first Easter week, all kinds of things had taken place. On Palm Sunday, we remembered Jesus is riding into Jerusalem and all the expectation that there was there amongst the crowd. Jesus, of course, is recorded as going into the temple and clearing out the buying and the selling going on and declaring that my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have turned it into a den of robbers. The chief priests and the teachers of the law were indignant with Jesus and wanted to be done away with this false Messiah, this blasphemer. And how could they be rid of him was very much on their minds. Yet, meanwhile, in the days preceding that Wednesday, the blind and the lame had been healed in the temple area, and Jesus had taught in the temple courts. If speculation is correct, then Jesus possibly spent the Wednesday in Bethany. And if that's the case, then that evening he was at a meal, and a woman, maybe one of the Marys, came and anointed him with costly perfumed oil. But the disciples were indignant about this and they objected, but Jesus rebukes them and says that she anointed him for his burial. But there was one disciple for whom this was just far too much. And Matthew records how Judas goes to the chief priests and conspires to hand Jesus over. And more than that, he's paid 30 pieces of silver to do so. What price to put on someone's life, to betray them even. In the accounts as we read on, we read about the meal before Jesus' arrest, his washing of his disciples' feet, even those of Judas. Judas sneaking out, Jesus praying in Gethsemane like this painting seeks to illustrate, his followers not even being able to keep awake for an hour as Christ agonized. Would we have been any different? An armed crowd comes. Jesus is betrayed with a kiss, arrested, a mockery of a trial, an illegal one at that. Peter's denials come, but hey, actually, where were any of the disciples really to be a support to Jesus? He's brought before Pilate, who had the power to release Jesus, but no, despite seeing that Jesus was handed over out of envy, Pilate washes his hands and gives him over to be beaten and crucified. On the gospel accounts go, brutally brought to visual imagination through films like The Passion. On the cross, we have recorded their various words of Christ in the midst of the pain and the agony and the isolation. And in darkness, he finishes with these words, "It is finished. Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And then he breathed his last. And we're told at that moment that the curtain separating off the Holy of Holies from the rest of the temple was torn in two. And of course, Sunday was coming. But Jesus's followers, those words that he said he was going to die, but then also come back to life, it hadn't really sank in. There was probably just desperation and despair. Perhaps the religious authorities, maybe they weren't dancing in celebration, but they were just glad it was all over. And as to Pilate, what was he thinking? Who knows? And here we are, another Easter, another lockdown. How do we keep the events of the crucifixion, the resurrection, everything that led up to that significant and not miss what it's all about? How do we not miss the love of God in action through Christ, the life-changing grace that there is in Jesus? Well, I don't actually have a nice, neat answer for us all. But it's been on my mind these past weeks to finish the set of Lent devotionals with reading Isaiah 53. And I was going to read it myself, but the other day I came across on YouTube a reading by Streetlights Bible using the New Living Translation version. And so I want to finish this set of devotionals simply by playing this clip. And I hope it helps us as we prepare towards Good Friday and then on into Easter weekend. So let me share this with us all.
Isaiah chapter 53. Who has believed our message? To whom has the Lord revealed his powerful arm? My servant grew up in the Lord's presence like a tender green shoot, like a root in dry ground. There was nothing beautiful or majestic about his appearance, nothing to attract us to him. He was despised and rejected, a man of sorrows, acquainted with deepest grief. We turned our backs on him and looked the other way. He was despised, and we did not care. Yet it was our weakness he carried. It was our sorrows that weighed him down. We thought his troubles were a punishment from God, a punishment for his own sins. But he was pierced for our rebellion, crushed for our sins. He was beaten so we could be whole. He was whipped so we could be healed. All of us, like sheep, have strayed away. We have left God's path to follow our own. Yet the Lord laid on him the sins of us all. He was oppressed and treated harshly, yet he never said a word. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep is silent before the shearers, he did not open his mouth. Unjustly condemned, he was led away. No one cared that he died without descendants, that his life was cut short in midstream. But he was struck down for the rebellion of my people. He had done no wrong and had never deceived anyone. But he was buried like a criminal. He was put in a rich man's grave. But it was the Lord's good plan to crush him and cause him grief. Yet when his life is made an offering for sin, he will have many descendants. He will enjoy a long life, and the Lord's good plan will prosper in his hands. When he sees all that is accomplished by his anguish, he will be satisfied. And because of his experience, my righteous servant will make it possible for many to be counted righteous, for he will bear all their sins. I will give him the honors of a victorious soldier because he exposed himself to death. He was counted among the rebels. He bore the sins of many and interceded for rebels.
To everyone who's joined with me in these Lent devotionals over these past weeks, thanks for doing so. I hope they've been some help, including today, as we prepare for Good Friday and Easter Day this coming weekend. Thanks for watching.